what it means to believe in God in the Old Testament is by no means clear. And that's something I also really want to talk about tonight. It's not obvious what it means. And, well, Geppetto, what he does at least is aim at the highest good of which he can conceive. You know, and that's actually been a philosophical definition of God upon occasion, that God is the highest good of which you conceive. And, you know, that's different than the idea of a transcendent being precisely, but it's in line with certain interesting psychoanalytic speculations. This is one of the things I really liked about Carl Jung. You know, Jung was so radical a thinker, it's just beyond belief. Like, I've read a lot of critics of Jung, and I've always got a kick out of them, because the things they accuse Jung of are so trivial compared to the things that Jung actually did, that it's like accusing a murderer of jaywalking. Like, because Jung was unbelievably radical. Like, here's one of his ideas. You know, he thought that it was necessary. He believed that psychotherapy could be replaced by a supreme moral effort. And so the moral effort would be something like aiming at the good and then trying to integrate yourself around that. And that the good at which you aimed would be something approximating what you would be like if you manifested your full potential. And that you'd have a glimmering of what that full potential was. So that would be the potential future you. And he thought of people as four-dimensional entities, essentially, that were stretched across time. And that you as a totality across time, including your potential, manifested yourself also in the here and now. And that part of what your potential manifested itself was something like the voice of conscience or intuition. It's an amazing idea. It's an amazing idea, right? Because it's like what you could be in the future beckons to you in the present and helps you determine the difference between good and evil. It's a mind-boggling idea, and you know, I think that it's an idea you have to contend with. And then he went further than that, and this is also a remarkable idea. You know, he was interested in the symbolic representation of Christ, and I mean, psychologically speaking, and he thought of Christ as the representation of the ideal potential human. It's something like that. So it was a symbolic, at minimum, that's what Christ was, is a symbolic representation of the ideal potential of a human being. And so for Jung, there was no psychological difference between who you could be in the future, beckoning to you in the present, and orienting yourself in relationship to Christ. Psychologically, those were the same thing. And then, so that's a pretty mind-boggling idea. Like, seriously, that's a mind-boggling idea. You know, especially when you add the psychological idea that one of the things that characterizes your ideal future self is the ability to make sacrifices, right? And the deeper the sacrifice, the better. And then also to recover from the sacrifice, right? So that's the death and rebirth. So the part of you that's most essential to your full flowering as a being is your ability to let things go and then spring back from that. So to die in some sense and to be reborn in the service of a higher good. And then, well, then the next part of that is that the direction of the world depends on you doing that. So not only your own life, but your family's life. And because we're networked so intently together, you know, the whole panoply of humankind and maybe the structure of the cosmos. And you know, you might think, well, no, but, you know, it's not so simple. It's not so simple. First of all, one person can wreak an awful lot of havoc. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And as we get more technologically powerful, that becomes even more relevant and important and crucial. You know, one of the things that Jung said was that we had to wake up because we are too technologically powerful to be as morally asleep as we are. And that seems to me just to be self-evident. That's, yeah, for sure, that's true. We're half asleep with nuclear bombs. It's not a good idea. It's seriously not a good idea. And so, well, and then you might ask yourself too, you know, well, like, what is the ultimate potential of a fully developed human being? And, well, we certainly know that you have admiration for people who are more developed rather than less developed. That just happens automatic. Or resentment, but that's okay. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. But it's not like you can't identify them. You can identify them, you know, and they're put forward to you in drama and fiction and all of that constantly. So that's another form of moral intuition. You know, you can discern the wheat from the chaff, let's say. And so the other thing that I was thinking about that's worth consideration too is that, you know, and maybe this is petty, but I don't think it is. Somebody asked me the other day if I believed in miracles, and I hate being asked questions like that, you know. And you know, it's also people ask me, do I believe in God? And I don't know what they mean when they say that, and so I don't know what to answer, because I don't think we're necessarily going to talk about the same thing. But in any case, I said yes, and I have a variety of reasons for that. But one of them is that, you know, the consensus among physicists is that we can track the origin of the cosmos to something like 100 millionth of a second after the Big Bang. It's like, it's so close to the Big Bang that the difference is literally infinitesimal. But the consensus is that before that, whatever that is, the laws of physics themselves break down. Well, what do you call an event that exists outside the laws of physics? That, by definition, that's a miracle. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a transcendent deity that caused the event. That's a separate issue. But it does imply a barrier of some sort beyond which we can't go, where some other set of rules apply. And so I find that interesting as well.